Did Jesus really rise from the dead? It's one of the most important and profound questions in human history. For over 2 millennia, this question has stirred hearts, fueled debates, inspired faith, and ignited controversy. At the very center of this enduring mystery lies a singular and enigmatic artifact, the Shroud of Turin. Believed by many to be the actual burial cloth of Jesus Christ, the Shroud of Turin continues to captivate believers, scientists, skeptics, and historians alike. It's mysterious, controversial, and perhaps to some, even miraculous. But beyond speculation and devotion, what does the actual evidence say? In this in-depth documentary, we're going to dive deep into the story, the science, the controversies, and the spiritual symbolism surrounding the shroud. And we'll confront the central question: could this ancient cloth actually prove that Jesus rose from the dead? Let's start by asking, what exactly is the Shroud of Turin? The shroud is a long piece of linen cloth, approximately 14 feet long and 3.5 feet wide, that bears the faint image of a man who appears to have suffered the brutal ordeal of crucifixion. This image shows wounds consistent with scourging, crucifixion, and a crown of thorns. First appearing in recorded history in the 14th century in Lille, France, the shroud eventually found its way to Turin, Italy, where it is now housed in the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist. It has become one of the most venerated and scrutinized relics in Christian history. According to Christian tradition, after Jesus' crucifixion, his body was wrapped in linen and placed in a tomb. On the third day, the tomb was found empty, and the resurrection became the cornerstone of the Christian faith. For many, the shroud is a tangible link to that event. But for others, it's a medieval mystery at best, or a clever hoax at worst. So where did it come from? Is it a holy relic from the 1st century, or a masterfully crafted medieval forgery? Let's explore the trail of evidence. One of the most fascinating aspects of the shroud is the image itself. It's not painted, drawn, or dyed. Under microscopic examination, there is no evidence of brushstrokes or pigment penetration into the fibers. The image appears to rest on the topmost fibers of the linen. Scientists have been baffled for decades, unable to conclusively determine how the image was made. The image depicts a man with his hands crossed over his groin, wounds on his wrists and feet, puncture wounds on his scalp, scourge marks across his back, and a spear wound in his side. These are all consistent with the crucifixion narrative as described in the Gospels. Forensic pathologists have analyzed the image in detail, and many agree that the anatomical precision and trauma patterns are astonishingly accurate. In 1988, carbon-14 dating was performed by 3 independent laboratories, in Oxford, Zurich, and Arizona. The samples tested dated the cloth to between 1260 and 1390 AD. This finding prompted headlines around the world declaring the shroud a medieval fake. However, controversy soon followed. Critics of the carbon dating argued that the samples used were taken from a corner of the shroud that had undergone medieval repairs, possibly after fire damage in the 16th century. Some researchers have proposed that the samples were not representative of the whole cloth, and thus the dating results could be skewed. Other factors, such as bacterial contamination, environmental carbon absorption, and repeated handling over centuries, may have also affected the results. In support of the shroud's authenticity, several other scientific investigations have revealed intriguing clues. For example, botanical experts studied pollen grains and plant fragments found on the shroud. They identified pollen from plants native only to the Middle East, including species that bloom in Jerusalem around the time of Passover. This strongly suggests that the cloth had indeed spent time in that region. Textile experts have also noted that the weave of the linen is a herringbone twill pattern, a weaving technique known to exist in the 1st century but uncommon in Europe during the Middle Ages. This type of weave has been found in ancient Jewish burial cloths discovered in the region of Masada, further supporting the idea that the shroud could date to the time of Jesus. The image on the shroud has unique 3-dimensional properties. Scientists at NASA and other research institutions have used image analysis and 3D rendering tools to study the image. Unlike ordinary photographs or paintings, the image's intensity varies in a way that correlates with the distance of the body from the cloth. This discovery allows the image to be turned into a three-dimensional relief, something not achievable with known artistic techniques of the Middle Ages. Then there's the blood. Forensic tests have confirmed that the reddish stains on the shroud are human blood. The blood is type AB, which is rare but consistent with blood found on other alleged relics associated with Jesus. Advanced imaging and chemical analysis have also shown the presence of bilirubin, a compound found in the blood of people who have experienced severe trauma, as would be expected in someone who had undergone scourging and crucifixion. Despite this, skepticism remains. Let's look at the arguments from the other side. Skeptics often point to the carbon dating as definitive proof that the shroud is a medieval creation. They argue that radiocarbon dating is a well-established and reliable method. To them, the evidence is straightforward. The cloth is no older than the 13th century. Others have proposed that the image could have been created using early photographic techniques. The idea, known as the proto-photography theory, suggests that a 14th century artist might have used light-sensitive chemicals and a crude camera obscura to project an image onto cloth. But this theory has many holes. No chemical residues consistent with such a method have been found on the shroud, and there is no historical documentation of such technology being used at the time. Some skeptics argue the image was produced through a chemical reaction involving a bas-relief sculpture heated and pressed against the cloth, leaving a scorch-like image. But all attempts to replicate the image using this or other techniques have fallen short. None have successfully reproduced the image's unique qualities, such as its superficiality, resolution, and 3D properties. Another common skeptical argument is the lack of references to the shroud in early Christian writings. If such an extraordinary relic existed from the 1st century, why wasn't it mentioned by early church fathers or documented in historical records before the 14th century? That said, some believe there are possible references. Certain early icons and artworks depicting the face of Jesus seem to bear a striking resemblance to the image on the shroud. These include the famous Christ Pantocrator icon from Mount Sinai and the Dandelion, a mysterious cloth said to bear the face of Jesus that appeared in the ancient city of Edessa. Some scholars believe these could be indirect references to the shroud. Whether one views it as a relic or a riddle, the Shroud of Turin has had an undeniable cultural, religious, and scientific impact. For many Christians, it represents a deeply personal and spiritual connection to the suffering, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Pilgrims from around the world travel to Turin when the shroud is publicly displayed, often in tears, kneeling before the cloth in silent reverence. In the scientific community, the shroud has become a symbol of the intersection between faith and reason. It has challenged researchers to investigate deeper, think differently, and pursue truth across disciplines. The shroud has been the subject of countless books, documentaries, films, and theological studies. It has appeared in media ranging from National Geographic to History Channel specials, from academic journals to religious blogs. Each new study adds another layer to the mystery, some supporting authenticity, others arguing against it. Perhaps what makes the shroud so compelling is that it doesn't give us all the answers. Instead, it invites us to ask deeper questions, not just about the cloth itself, but about life, death, suffering, faith, and the very nature of evidence. For some, the shroud may be the closest we've come to physical evidence of the resurrection. For others, it may simply be an astonishing piece of medieval craftsmanship. But no one can deny its power to move hearts and stir the imagination. So, did Jesus really rise from the dead? That remains a question of personal faith. But the Shroud of Turin stands as a powerful symbol, not only of that possibility, but of the enduring mystery at the heart of Christianity. In a time where faith and science are often seen as opposites, the shroud challenges us to look beyond binaries. To consider that maybe, just maybe, the greatest truths require both evidence and belief. What do you think? Is the Shroud of Turin the authentic burial cloth of Jesus Christ, preserved through time against all odds? Or is it the product of human ingenuity, crafted centuries later for devotion or deception? We may never know the full story. But the mystery endures. And in that mystery, millions continue to find meaning, inspiration, and hope. Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this exploration thought-provoking, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more deep dives into the mysteries of history, science, and faith.